6 world champions, 7 different winners in the first 7 races, a winner no one expected, and possibly the most thrilling F1 Grand Prix season of all time. The 2012 season gave us some of the most awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping moments the sport has ever seen. This season was a spectacle to behold, so buckle up and put your racing helmets on as I recount the greatest F1 season of all time to you, one race at a time. It all started down under in Australia, when McLaren, despite their lackluster 2011 season, burst out of the gates like a kangaroo on steroids. Jenson Button snatched his 3rd Australian Grand Prix victory, leaving defending champ Sebastian Vettel hot on his heels just 3 seconds behind. Meanwhile, teammate Lewis Hamilton, who kicked off from pole position, managed to secure a respectable 3rd place. McLaren was back with a bang, causing everyone to scratch their heads in disbelief. Not many had expected McLaren to be this explosive out of the races. Even fewer had expected Jenson to be the one leading this charge. But things would take a twist in Malaysia. As the rain poured down, McLaren's hopes washed away with a less than stellar pit stop that left Hamilton in a sticky situation. However, the master of wet conditions, Fernando Alonso, wove his magic in what many considered a sluggish Ferrari, stealing the victory right from under McLaren's nose. This led many to ask the question, was McLaren only good under scorching heat, or did they have more tricks up their sleeves? After that, we go to China, where Nico Rosberg brought the thunder for Mercedes, snatching their first win since their return to F1. McLaren, on the other hand, had a bounce-back day with Button and Hamilton securing 2nd and 3rd places, showing they weren't ready to be left in the dust just yet. Vettel, feeling the pressure, would roar back to life with his first victory of the season in Bahrain, but he wasn't exactly doing a victory dance in his Red Bull. Something was amiss in his ride, and he made it known. And that is when that happened. The most surprising moment in Formula One history. The 2012 Spanish Grand Prix is when the stars aligned and the cosmos danced with God's light. Qualifying had given us a very interesting front row. Alonso started in 2nd, but it wasn't Sebo, Lewis or Nico or even Webber that started ahead of him. No, it was Pastor freaking Maldonado. From the moment the lights went out, we were set for a classic, as Fernando Alonso catapulted himself off the 2nd spot on the grid and overtook him on the 1st corner, even with Maldonado trying to block Fernando, leading him onto the grass. For a good while it was Alonso leading the pack from the front, but no matter how well Alonso drove, no matter how hard he raced, Maldonado seemed to be keeping up. Maldonado seemed to be just as fast. Maldonado seemed to be on Alonso's glorious bottom like a bad rash. And on lap 25, Williams would perform a move that put everyone on the edge of their seat. They triggered the undercut, executing a flawless pit stop. The Williams mechanic swiftly equipped Pastor with fresh tires, allowing him to re-enter the track in clean air and perform his best Sonic the Hedgehog impression. Eventually, Ferrari made the call to bring Alonso in for his own set of fresh rubber, but it was too late. Alonso exited the pits to Maldonado, blazing past him, with the Venezuelan setting the fastest lap of the race. This dogged, unrelenting drive from both Maldonado and everyone in the Williams garage meant that the man on the track now had a substantial 7-second gap that was created, with Maldonado successfully fending off Alonso's pursuit throughout the 3rd stint. However, the race was far from over for the Venezuelan. As the tension mounted, a heart-in-mouth moment unfolded during Pastor's 2nd and final pit stop. The rear right wheel was frustratingly slow to go on, costing precious time and allowing Alonso to close the gap after his own trip to the pit lane. And things would get even dicier yet, with a 3rd man entering the fray. The Lotus Renault in front of him had no intentions of pitting anytime soon. His presence on the track slowed Pastor's pace, providing an opportunity for Alonso to catch up. If Maldonado wanted to make history, he would have to right it himself by overtaking it, and in the driving seat sat one of the fastest drivers on track, Kimi Räikkönen. But with Alonso closing in rapidly in just 2 laps after his pit stop, Pastor seized the moment. Persisted by DRS, he relentlessly closed the gap to Räikkönen, finally surging past him in a breathtaking maneuver during the braking zone of turn 1. swiftly reclaiming his rightful place at the front of the pack. And then it happened. All of Catalunya rose to its feet as Maldonado crossed the finish line after 66 thrilling laps, clinching victory with a remarkable 3.1 second lead. He had done the unthinkable. This triumph ended Williams' 8-year drought without a Grand Prix win, a perfect celebration for team owner Frank Williams on his 70th birthday. Now let's take a look at the standings after that chaotic rollercoaster ride of a start. Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso found themselves uncomfortably, awkwardly close to each other, in a thrilling tie at the top with 61 points each. Hamilton, meanwhile, was close behind with 53 points, while Kimi Räikkönen and Romain Grosjean from Lotus were playing catch-up with 49 and 48 points respectively. Then, we went to Monaco. It is a circuit fit for royalty, and here the stage would be set for the return of the king, with Mark Webber claiming his second win in 3 years. However, it was Alonso who emerged as the sole possessor of the World Championship lead once the checkered flag fell. With impeccable tire management and clever Ferrari strategy, he had run longer than Hamilton during pit stops, leaving his competitors in the dust. Vettel, after another failure to reach the top 10 shootout, pulled off a long first stint and managed to jump ahead of the McLaren to secure 4th place. When the checkered flag fell, the top quartet was separated by less than 2 seconds. Monaco had once again served up a classic straight from the kitchen of the F1 gods. Now let's dive into round 7 in Canada. In a thrilling battle with Hamilton at the front, both Alonso and Vettel decided to take a gamble and go for just one pit stop, while McLaren played it safe. Hamilton effortlessly passed both cars on his fresh rubber, leaving them scratching their heads in disbelief. Eventually, Red Bull cut their losses and brought Vettel in for a second stop, but Ferrari paid the price for not doing the same when Vettel overtook Alonso for 4th place. Yeah, that was a proper comedy skit. Round 8 took us to Valencia, where a pivotal moment unfolded in Alonso's championship challenge. Vettel, the man on the pole, seemed destined for victory. The German had raced into an early lead and was so far ahead of the rest of the pack that he had to contend with no traffic after pitting and rejoining the track. Yeah, that's how bonkers fast he was that day. His closest competition, Fernando Alonso, had started in 11th and jumped into 8th early. After passing Nico Hülkenberg for 7th, Alonso stayed out a lap longer than Kobayashi and Kimi while they made their pit stops, and then jumped them both when he came out on track. Things would really pick up when an incident on lap 27 between Jon-Erik Vergne and Heikki Kovalainen brought out the safety car, erasing Seb's 20-second lead at the front. More importantly, it allowed Alonso and Kimi to jump Lewis after he had problems with his pit stop. By the end of the safety car period, Alonso had made it up to 3rd place within striking distance of Sebastian Vettel's charging Red Bull. By the time the cars had reached the first corner after going green, Alonso had passed Grosjean into 2nd. Still, Alonso's Ferrari was simply not fast enough to keep the Red Bull behind it over the course. Sebastian Vettel's Red Bull lost drive coming out on turn 10, eventually retiring from the race, allowing, you guessed it, Fernando Alonso to take the lead of the Valencia Grand Prix. After that, the man never looked back and raced off into the sunset, being followed by fan favorites Kimi Räikkönen and Michael Schumacher onto the podium. The home support went wild, cheering for their own. Valencia was red for the Tifosi. Valencia was red for Fernando Alonso. In round 9 of the championship, our innocent crit found themselves at Silverstone, where the weather played a dismal role in the proceedings. It would be here that Alonso saw an opportunity to make up for Ferrari's qualifying deficit. He claimed the team's first pole since 2010 and came agonizingly close to back-to-back wins. With a reverse tire strategy, he battled against the relentless pursuer Mark Webber, managing to stay ahead until the last 3 laps when the faster Red Bull overtook him. However, he still kept Vettel's RB8 at bay, increasing his points lead over the reigning champions to a whopping 29. In Germany, the rain dance master Alonso once again worked his magic and secured pole position, but this time Vettel joined him on the front row, setting the stage for an absolute supernova of fire. Jenson Button crashed the party. The man swooped in like a mischievous squirrel, snatching 2nd place from Vettel during a pit stop. The top 3 drivers fought tooth and nail with Alonso, managing to stay just out of DRS rage. Vettel, in a desperate attempt to regain his position, overtook Button on the final lap, but alas, it was deemed illegal by the race stewards. A time penalty pushed Vettel back to 5th place, meaning Alonso's lead over Seb only grew. But then we move on to round 11 in Hungary, the last race before the summer break. The battle for victory was an exclusive affair between Hamilton in the resurgent McLaren and the two Lotuses. Surprisingly, neither Vettel nor Alonso made it into the podium, leaving fans scratching their heads in disbelief. Ferrari's form seemed concerning, but Alonso managed to increase his overall points lead to a whopping 40 points. The standings at the halfway part of the season painted a pretty grim picture for the defending champion. First, Fernando Alonso, 164. Second, Mark Webber, 124. Third, Sebastian Vettel, 122. Fourth, Lewis Hamilton, 117. Fifth, Kimi Räikkönen, honest thanks to a first corner pile-up triggered by Romain Grosjean. Alonso unfortunately would fall victim to the chaos, while Vettel charged forward to claim second place. It was a lucky break for Vettel, but he had to showcase his will-to-will instincts to secure a spot on the podium. Round 13 took us to the iconic Monza, where the Tifosi were ready to cheer their beloved Ferrari to victory. However, Formula One is rarely that simple. Both Alonso and Vettel faced their own troubles. Vettel's RB8 suffered another alternator failure, leaving him off the pace and out of contention for a podium finish. Meanwhile, Alonso's frustration reached new heights when a broken anti-rear roll bar in Q3 sent him spiraling down to 10th on the grid. Despite driving like a man possessed, Alonso could only salvage third place, leaving him with a sense of missed opportunity. Round 14 took us to the dazzling streets of Singapore, where the nightlights illuminated the thrilling battle for the championship. Hamilton, determined to outshine his rivals, led the pack with Vettel and Alonso hot on his heels. But wait, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Adrian Newey with another arse-pull innovation that nobody can compete with. The mastermind behind the Red Bull would unleash a secret weapon in Singapore, a double DRS device under new front wing. Suddenly the RB8 was back in business, and Vettel pounced on the opportunity when Hamilton's gearbox decided to leave the chat. He isn't called the Lion of Singapore for no reason. Seb celebrated his second win of the season, while Alonso salvaged third place in a valiant effort. Now, while Alonso had done exceptionally well to keep his dusty Ferrari in the game, there was one thing going against him that even he found difficult to deal with: Sebastian Vettel's unerring consistency. Seb was picking up steam, and that was bad news for the rest of the grid. It would be in round 15 as Suzuka Alonso would make a fatal mistake. Vettel, armed with his double DRS, started on pole, while Fernando found himself entangled in a non-consensual dance routine with Räikkönen at the first corner. The collision proved costly for Alonso as Vettel, with a clear track ahead, never looked back. With back-to-back wins, Vettel had closed the gap. The title race had been blown wide open. In Korea, the tides of the championship began to shift. Alonso looked on in agony as he was greeted with the familiar sight of Vettel storming to victory, leaving his teammate Webber in the dust. Alonso put up for a valiant fight, but had to settle for third place again. Avert your eyes, Alonso fans. The driver's standings after the Korean GP looked like this. First, Sebastian Vettel, 250. Second, Fernando Alonso, 209. Third, Kimi Räikkönen, 167. Fourth, Lewis Hamilton, 153. Fifth, Mark Webber, 152. At round 17 in India, the qualifying pattern would remain largely unchanged. The Red Bull duo dominated the front row, with Alonso starting on the third row. However, race day proved to be a different story. Alonso, the crafty Spaniard that he is, managed to split the Red Bulls and secure a second-place finish. But alas, Vettel's winning streak continued. Increasing his advantage over Alonso, the Spaniard was seeing his first title in a long time slip away inch by inch. Was there any way he could recover? Was there a twist in the tail left? Now, at this point, Vettel was leading Alonso by a mere 13 points as they headed into the final 3 races. Now, everyone in the paddock was convinced that Vettel had it in the bag. It seemed like Vettel was about to cruise to victory, while poor Alonso struggled to keep the car in one piece. But this truly was a season of buts. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix wasn't quite going to be this straightforward. So, what happened? Well, Vettel once again showed his qualifying prowess by outperforming Alonso, standing himself in second place on the starting grid. Meanwhile, Alonso found himself starting from 6th. No big deal, right? Well, it turns out that Red Bull made a little whoopsie. They forgot to follow the post-qualifying rules, which required them to have a standard 1 liter in their car for inspection. Instead, they only had 800 milliliters. As a result, Vettel was hit with a penalty, forcing him to start from the pit lane instead of beside pole sitter Hamilton. Suddenly, the tables had turned, and Alonso found himself holding a golden ticket, a chance to close that 13-point gap and reclaim his spot at the top. Hamilton's McLaren decided to take an unplanned nap, suffering a power failure and retiring after just a third into the race. Talk about bad luck. But hey, this unexpected turn of events catapulted Raikkonen into the spotlight, giving him a glorious chance to win his first race in his comeback season. The stars were aligning for him. Alonso started the race well, climbing up to second place. But wait, there's more. Vettel, starting from the back of the grid like a true underdog, was on fire, charging his way through the ranks. Red Bull's strategy for Vettel was spot on, and it looked like he was on track to secure some precious points. However, his teammate Webber, who had been having a rough second half of the season, crashed out thanks to none other than Grosjean, the self-proclaimed first corner nutcase. But guess what? This crash brought out the safety car, leveling the playing field and giving Vettel a chance to catch up with the front runners. With fresh tires and determination in his heart, Vettel put on a champion's display, crossing the finish line in third place, just behind Alonso. His lead was only cut by 3 points, bringing it down to a still respectable 10 points. But let's not forget about the true hero of the day, Kimi Räikkönen. The guy stole everyone's thunder with his brilliant victory. And he didn't just wow us on the track, he also gave us a hilarious moment during a team radio conversation. So I'll just let you experience it in its greatest form. Okay, to the next guy behind you is Alonso. I'll keep you updated at the pace. That's alone, I know what. Now we arrive at round 19, the United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. With a 10-point lead, Vettel had a mathematical shot at sealing the crown. Qualifying went in Vettel's favor, securing pole position, while Alonso struggled to 8th place in a controversial move. Ferrari decided to break the seal on Felipe Massa's gearbox, promoting Alonso to 7th. This stunning strategy paid off as Alonso stormed through the pack, finishing in 3rd after Webber's unfortunate retirement. Meanwhile, Vettel would shockingly miss out on the win to a certain Lewis Hamilton. It seemed as if Seb had let Lewis pass rather than fight for the win and risk it DNF at that point of the season. So, with this result, Alonso headed into the final race trailing by 13 points. The championship battle was far from over. There would yet to be further twists in Sao Paulo. As the cars lined up on the grid, you could feel the anticipation in the air. It was as if this world had reached its breaking point. When the 5 lights went out, little did we know that the first corner was going to set up a gut-wrenching finale. Vettel's race got off to a rocky start as he slipped back due to a poor start. And if that wasn't enough, Bruno Senna, the nephew of the legendary Ayrton Senna, collided with Vettel, sending him into a spin. The damage inflicted was so severe that his team deemed it unrepairable. As if fate wasn't cruel enough, Vettel also faced speed issues on the straights and lost communication with his pit wall. Dude, the radio's not working. What are you telling us? But got everything. It was a nightmare unfolding before his eyes. The Spaniard would fight his way up from 7th on the grid, setting himself up for a potential championship victory. He was close. He was going to do it. But amidst the rain, safety cars and strategic pit stops, Vettel showcased his resilience. He rose up, kinda like Batman actually. Against all odds, he had fought his way back through the field, finishing in a remarkable 6th place. It was a performance that left everyone in awe. Alonso, with the help of his teammate Massa, who had a stunning resurgence in the second half of the season, secured a well-deserved 2nd place. Their teamwork was nothing short of brilliant. However, in the end it proved to be too little too late for Alonso. It was deja vu for Alonso, experiencing the bitter taste of defeat to Vettel for the 2nd time in just 3 years in the Drivers' World Championship. With a mere 3 points separating them, Vettel emerged as the 3-time world champion, making history as the youngest to achieve this